Hey guys, welcome to episode 60 of The Green Life. Today's episode is all about healing, and I have here an amazing guest, Chris Wark, who really healed his body. And you might recognize Chris from Chris beat cancer, and that's exactly, as the name suggests, what he did. He healed his body using food as medicine and other tools that he will share into the episode. Before we get deeper into this, let me just give a big shout out to Namawell for the J2 juicer, their beautiful new juicer that really is awesome. Cold pressed, can juice in bulk, and I use it every day for my green ones because I really love it. So if you are on the market for a new juicer and you really want to invest in a good one, this is the one I suggest, and you can save 10% by using my discount code into the show notes. Also, I want to let you know that our farm here in northern Portugal is open for the summer for retreats and events, and we would love to have you here. So if you go into the show notes, you'll find the link and you can check us out, get in touch with any question. We look forward to seeing you. Okay, back to the episode. I am so excited about sharing this with you because Chris's journey is amazing. He found out only when he was 26 years old that he had colon cancer, a cancer that statistically is found in older and an aging population. And so it was a bit of a shock, but instead of just listening to what the doctors were saying, he decided to take matters in his own hands. And instead of going the chemo route, he really healed his body using food as medicine. So again, a statement and a testament that food really is medicine and we have to use it as such. So guys, without further ado, let's dive into this beautiful episode. Welcome, Chris. Hi, Chris. Thank you so much for joining me on The Green Life today. How are you?
Hi, Chantal. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very excited to speak to you. I find you very inspiring and your story really touched me, and I think you're changing lives every day. So I really appreciate that. But in case somebody doesn't know your story or doesn't know about you, can we just give them a little bit of a background?
Yeah, I was diagnosed with colon cancer when I was 26 years old in December 2003. Just a few days before Christmas. And it's a pretty big shock at any age, but I think especially when you're young, I mean, it's the last thing you expect. It's less surprising in middle age or old age, right? But yeah, I mean, it's an absolutely terrifying diagnosis. And a lot of people don't realize, if you haven't had a cancer diagnosis, I mean, it's so traumatic that you actually get symptoms of PTSD. From the diagnosis. I mean, it is that traumatic a life event. And there's so much fear that is injected into you, metaphorically speaking, and it just consumes you, and when you're in a state of fear and panic and worry, it's very difficult to make a reasonable, thoughtful, informed decision.
Sorry, I was going to ask if you felt like pressure in the moment to make a decision straight away when they gave you the diagnosis.
Absolutely. Every patient is rushed into treatment. I mean, pretty much. There's 200 different types of cancer, but I have to speak in general terms. Yeah. But generally, yeah, there's so much pressure and fear. Doctors tell the patients, you have this diagnosis, you got to get into treatment right away. They wanted to have me in surgery within a couple days, and usually it's within just a few days. In the U.S., you are either starting chemotherapy, you're starting on some kind of drug, or you're having surgery or having radiation. Yeah. I mean, it's immediate. And so this is one of the many problems with our current cancer treatment standard of care. And so and I was in that position. And so I managed to postpone my surgery about 10 days because I just didn't want to be in the hospital on Christmas. Yeah. I didn't have any other reason other than just sounds so depressing. Can I at least have some normal Christmas get-togethers with my family? And I was having pain and discomfort, and that's what led me to get a colonoscopy, was this persistent pain that was mysterious and we didn't know what it was. And so, but I wasn't in a life-threatening situation. And that's really important too, because most cancer patients, when they're diagnosed, they're not in a life-threatening situation. right? They have a little pain, they have some discomfort. Maybe they just have a lump or a bump, right? With no pain, right? They feel fine. But they're all treated the same, typically.
Yeah.
Which is rushed into treatments that can be brutal, right? Life-changing, permanent damage to the body, organ removal, potentially deadly. You know, people die during surgery. People die from chemotherapy. And so patients are not informed, and that's a big problem. So anyway, I had the surgery, and I woke up and they said, it's worse than we thought. You're stage IIIc, which means that it spread to my lymph nodes. They did take out the lymph nodes, but the next step, if you have, lymph node involvement with colon cancer, I was told I needed 9 to 12 months of chemotherapy. Wow. And so, it just went from bad to worse. It's that was a whole nother level of scary that had not been discussed until that point in the hospital. And so I initially just accepted that I guess that's what I've got to do. But I was on some pretty heavy medication too. So like I wasn't thinking about it. I was just laying there trying not to be in pain. And but a couple things happened in the hospital. 2 things that are worth sharing. The first was the first meal that I was served after my diagnosis. After my surgery. And that was a sloppy Joe.
What?
You know what a sloppy Joe is?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, sloppy Joe. Mystery meat slopped onto a burger bun, and that was they put it on a cafeteria tray and stuck it in my lap in my hospital bed. And I was just like, I think there might have been some Jello with it, or maybe some applesauce. Like it was just, just a horrifically unhealthy meal. And I wasn't a healthy guy. I mean, I was a junk food connoisseur. Junk food, fast food, processed food, barbecue. I could eat whatever I wanted. I've always been thin. So, I never worried about my weight. I never had health problems. Again, I was 26, but this caught up to me. So, but I knew that there was a difference between health food and junk food, right? If someone was like, pick the healthy food, broccoli or a hot dog, I'd be like, well, broccoli is the healthier one, right? So I knew like the sloppy Joe was like so strange. I was like, oh, why are they serving? This is the worst. Like I wouldn't order this anywhere, and you can't even get them in restaurants anyway because nobody wants a sloppy Joe.
Yeah, sloppy.
Right? They don't serve them in restaurants, except for maybe some obscure restaurant somewhere in the middle of nowhere, right? As far as I knew, the only place you could get a sloppy Joe would be the military, summer camp, and prison. Right? Hospitals, surprise. So anyway, that was a red flag. And then a few days later, I was told I would be able to go home, and my surgeon came in and we were having a conversation about, what was next. And, and I just happened to say, hey, is there any food I need to avoid? And his response was, no, just don't lift anything heavier than a beer.
Okay.
Yeah. And so again, I'm like, really? That like nobody cares? Nobody thinks diet is important? In the medical industry, like no one's giving me any kind of dietary advice. It's just like, eat whatever you want. Obviously he was implying, you can drink alcohol. Who cares? Like just, so, I went home and I was recovering from the surgery and thinking about my life, and I was weaning myself off the pain medication. And as I sobered up, I really started to take my next step seriously. And I was thinking about, what am I to become? And I had seen what chemotherapy had done to other humans in the world. And it's alarming, I'll never forget the first time I saw an advanced cancer patient. I was a little kid and I was with my mom, and I remember being like, Mom, what's wrong with him? Like bald, had the mask on, just emaciated, clearly like this was a very sick person. And I'd never seen a human like that looked like that before. And so I was like, that's going to be me. I'm going to be the guy that little kids are like pointing at going, Mom, what's wrong with him? You know? Mm. And so that wasn't a good feeling. Yeah. You know, I was not excited about that prospect. And I didn't know what else to do. I didn't have any other ideas or options, but I just had this increasing resistance to the idea of poisoning my way back to health.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so my wife and I are Christians, and we pray, and we prayed together, and I just said, God, you know, if there's another way besides chemotherapy, please show me. I don't know what to do. I trust you, you know, and I need some help. And 2 days later, I got a book that was sent to me from a man who lives in Alaska who knew my dad. And this book was about healing with raw food.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the guy who wrote it, George Malcolmus, had healed his colon cancer with a raw food diet. And I'm like, whoa, okay. Well, this is interesting. Mm-hmm. And this guy's claiming that you can heal cancer by radically changing your diet. And essentially going back to the Garden of Eden, eating raw fruits and vegetables only. Yeah. And also he encouraged drinking a lot of carrot juice. Mm-hmm. And this is what he said helped him heal. And so I'm like, you know, sometimes it just takes one person's story to change your life. Yeah. Like one person at the right moment in your life can just completely send you in a different direction. And that's what George Malcolmus did for me. And he was still alive. I mean, I think he's still alive now. I mean, it's like been 40 years or whatever.
Wow.
Probably almost 50 years since his diagnosis. And he's in his 90s. So I was excited. I mean, he gave me so much hope, right? He gave me this hope that I could heal, right? And he gave me back my power and my responsibility. And this is huge because cancer patients are told, when they ask their doctor, how did I get cancer? Because everybody wants to know. They are told, well, we don't know, but it's maybe genetic. Do you have a family history? Then it's probably genetic or hereditary. If you don't have a family history, I didn't have a family history. They said, well, you know, then it may just be bad luck. Mm.
So you don't,
and when
you don't get told you have any options to actually take anything into control because it wasn't in control in the first place, right?
That's right. So when you tell a patient it may be bad luck or bad genes, what you're essentially telling them is there's nothing you did to contribute to your current situation, right? None of your decisions in your life up to this point made any impact on your current life situation. Mm. And that is the recipe for victimhood, right? You are a victim of disease. And because nothing you did contributed to your disease, there's nothing you can do to help yourself except for show up for treatment, right? Like we are your only hope.
Yeah.
And this is, in my opinion, it's just egregious. It's medical malpractice because there are thousands and thousands of published studies on the anti-cancer nutritive value in fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, herbs and spices, legumes, whole grains, like in food, whole plant food. And it's just ignored, right? It's not taught in med school. Doctors don't know anything about it. It's, you know, there's no money in nutrition. The money's in drugs and surgery. And so, you know, the entire medical system is oriented to generate maximum profits, right? And so maximum profits don't come from nutrition advice and exercise and stress reduction. And so, and what's wild is that up to 90% of cancers are caused by diet, lifestyle, and environment. Up to 90%. Only roughly 5% to 10% of cancers are genetic. Some people would say it's less than that.
Yeah.
And so once you realize that, you know, you also should realize that you have a lot of power and agency to take control of your life, to make changes to your daily routine, and to optimize your daily routine in a way that is anti-cancer.
Yeah.
And it starts with the food that you eat. And there's a lot more you can do and you should do, but the food is the first step. It's like the gateway drug to, to the healthy path is changing what you put in your mouth. And so I converted to a raw food diet overnight. I mean, I hadn't even finished this guy's book. I was just like, oh, I'm doing this. Like, I want to do it. I want to see what'll happen if I do this. Like, I was fascinated by this idea because at that time I'd never even heard of people only eating raw fruits and vegetables. It was January 2004. I mean, there was no one talking about it on the internet that I was aware of. There was no social media anyway. There was no YouTube.
Yeah.
Like, I spent very little time on the internet, right? Very, very little time on the internet. And so I went to Whole Foods, loaded up the cart, and I'm like, okay, I'm doing this. I'm going to figure this out. And I bought a juicer and I bought giant bags of carrots. And, it was like, there was no debate for me. It was like, I loved the idea. I believed it would help me. I was confident it would help me. I wasn't 100% certain, but I knew it wouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
And I just thought, this can only help. There's no way it can hurt me. And so I was on my way, but there was a lot of resistance. People around me that were close to me didn't like that I was making these changes. When you follow the conventional path, everybody supports you.
Yeah.
When you veer off the path, you're on your own.
Yeah.
That's hard. And it's so hard that some people won't ever do it. Right?
Yeah, you have to be a special character to really stand up on your own and be like, I'm doing this because I believe in it, even if you're not supporting me.
Yeah. Yeah. And either a special kind of person, which in some ways I am because I'm an only child. I think that helped. Being an only child helped me just be a more independently minded person. But sometimes, it's just being thrust into a situation that is so difficult forces you to become a different person, right?
Yeah,
it forces you out of your comfort zone. And so anyway, I see patients making this decision all the time that they just finally are like, no, I'm going my own way. And because I know in my core, this is the best way for me, even if no one else understands. And so that's what I did. My oncologist, first oncologist I saw told me I was insane if I didn't do chemotherapy. I never went back to him. I found a naturopathic doctor who connected me with an integrative oncologist. And I assembled a small support system, of people who were there to support me. And I talk about all the details in my first book. It's called Chris Beat Cancer. But the big lesson here is that there is support out there for you, but sometimes you have to go beat the bushes to find it. If you have close friends or family members that are 100% on board, that is a huge blessing. And I didn't have that. I had my mom. She supported me 100% going the natural route. And she had stacks and stacks of books on natural healing. Like, it was awesome. It was like she had been collecting books on natural healing and alternative medicine and all kinds of stuff for decades, had read them, had never been sick, but she'd always just been interested. She's just a lifelong learner, my mom. And so she had she's just a voracious reader and just constantly reading and learning and just loves to learn. And so she had all these books stacked up from like Paul Bragg, Pablo Areola, she had, brought me information, Dr. Lorraine Day, Dr. Richard Schultz, there's so many. She had the first book ever written about rebounding.
Nice.
Yeah, I have it in my library now. She had The Grape Cure by Joanna Brandt. Books on fasting. It's incredible. So I went from book to book to book. And the cool thing was, at that time, which it didn't feel like a blessing, but a lot of times adversity and trial and difficulty it doesn't feel like a blessing, right? But there's a blessing that's coming. It's setting you up for blessing.
Yeah.
Or it's what they say, a blessing in disguise. And so the blessing in disguise was like, I had limited information, right? I just had these, from one book to the next. The internet wasn't helpful, but every resource I looked at, they were all saying the same things.
Yeah.
They were all saying raw foods, juicing, detoxification, fasting, forgiveness. And so, it was nice to have that reinforcement, to keep saying, okay, yeah, I'm on the right path. Yeah, I'll read this other book. Okay, they're saying this too. They're, everybody was sort of in agreement back then. Now it's just chaos. There's so much confusion online about cancer and nutrition and diet. And there's all these meat lovers pimping this keto diet and carnivore diet, which is absurd. It's so absurd and so harmful and unhealthy. And I don't know. It's just people who just love to eat meat and they just want people to follow them and be a part of their, tribe or whatever. But the point is, so I just followed that path and I just, created a daily routine to optimize my health. And healing, it just happens one day at a time, You just have to get one day right. Just get today right, and then get tomorrow right. Like, it takes a little planning, got to make sure you have the food, right? And you have to make sure your calendar is organized so that you can do the things you need to do to take care of yourself. So you got to rearrange your life, got to make healing a priority. You have to start saying no to things, if you're overcommitted. You've got to get away from people that are toxic and stressful and causing you distress. You got to resolve problems in your life. Like, you really have to get busy taking action. But the first step is just change what you eat. Yeah. And then from there, exercise is so incredible. I mean, cancer patients who exercise live longer, even, the ones that do chemo and everything, they have better survival because exercise strengthens your immune system.
Yeah.
And improves detoxification. I mean, it boosts your mood. It makes you happier and more, just more content, and you feel better about yourself. Like, it does all these wonderful things, you just get out there and do something, you get off the couch, turn off the TV, go outside, right? Just take a walk, that's minimum. Just if there's a great study, one of my favorites, it's on breast cancer patients. And they found that breast cancer patients who ate an average of 5 servings of fruits and vegetables per day, and they walked 30 minutes per day, had a 50% decreased risk of recurrence after 9 years.
Wow.
Think about that. Cut their recurrence risk in half from 2 very small, diet and lifestyle changes. Yeah. More fruits and vegetables, because the average American eats 1 to 2 servings per day, and making a commitment and sticking with it of brisk walking 30 minutes a day, and that's like maybe 1.5 miles. And so, so that's an incredible state. And I wasn't eating 5 servings of fruits and vegetables per day. I was eating 15 to 20. I mean, I decided I'm going to overdose on nutrition. I'm going to flood my body with as much good stuff as possible. Vitamins, minerals, enzymes, antioxidants, all these thousands of phytochemicals, phytonutrients that are in plant food. I'm just going to get it in there and let my body use what it needs. Yeah. But I wanted to give it an abundance. And the alternative was, that, or I just wanted to poison myself to near death and hope that I survived and that my body could rebuild. And when it rebuilt, there wouldn't be any more cancer.
Yeah.
Right. That's the other alternative. And that path rarely works. It rarely cures patients long-term. They can eliminate tumors, no problem, right? Tumors are easier to get rid of. The problem is they keep coming back.
Yeah.
They can burn them off, cut them off, poison them, shrink them. But those are all short-term solutions to a long-term problem. And that's the paradox of most of these treatments is the real paradox of chemotherapy is the most, I'd say, paradoxical, is that, yeah, you're shrinking tumors, killing cancer cells, but typically chemotherapy drugs are not killing cancer stem cells. And while the patient is undergoing chemo, the stem cells hunker down, they become more resistant and more aggressive, and the chemotherapy drugs are destroying that person's immune system.
Yeah.
And so when they finish chemo, they get some report that the tumor shrunk, or maybe some of the spots are gone, and everybody's celebrating. But in a short amount of time, months, maybe a year, they get a follow-up scan, and there are new spots. There's spots on their liver, their lungs, their brain, their bones. It's spread because their immune system was wiped out by the chemo, and the chemo made the cancer cells more aggressive. So it's like, that is a problem, right? And very little has changed. Immunotherapy drugs are different, and this is the emerging cancer treatment that right now they've had some great success with a small number of cases and a small number of cancers. But generally, even the cancer industry's figuring out that the immune system is key, right? So they're shifting away from this carpet bombing approach. Let's just poison the whole body and hope the person somehow manages to survive, to like, let's harness the person's immune system and empower their immune system to identify and kill cancer cells. Hey, that's a much better strategy in my opinion.
Yeah.
But those drugs still have side effects, and some patients can't even tolerate the side effects because they can be life-threatening too. Yeah. But it's a better path generally to focus on the immune system versus on just total destruction. So I created a routine for myself that was sustainable with the food that I ate every day. And I focused on eating the most potent anti-cancer foods, which are the cruciferous vegetables and the allium family vegetables. The cruciferous are broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kale. Allium is garlic, onions, and leeks. And what I just described was a salad.
Yeah, pretty much.
A giant salad. And that's what's on the cover. I mean, it's on the cover of my cookbook. It's called Beat Cancer Kitchen. The giant salad. It's broccoli, cauliflower, kale, cabbage, onions, mushrooms, peppers, sauerkraut, or kimchi, avocado. You can put any kind of sprouts on there. I would do sprouted mung beans or sprouted lentils or alfalfa sprouts or broccoli sprouts or all of them. I mean, I really was trying to put all of the vegetables in there every day. And I was eating that twice a day. That was lunch and dinner every day.
Yeah.
And it was delicious, and it filled me up. And of course, I'd put a lot of spices on it. The recipes are in my books and on my website. But a bunch of spices on there, and apple cider vinegar, a little olive oil. I mean, just made it. I just made it so delicious and savory, and like it filled me up. It does take a while to eat a giant salad that big. It takes you gotta block off the schedule, but the food was my medicine. Right? Food is medicine, but you have to treat it. A lot of people like that idea, like, oh, food is medicine, right? But you really have to treat it like medicine. And what I mean by that is, when you eat an apple, right, you're getting, again, vitamins and minerals, enzymes, antioxidants, you're getting fiber, you're getting water, you're getting prebiotics, you're getting good bacteria. And prebiotics is the fiber, and you're getting probiotics. So you're getting all these wonderful good bacteria when you eat raw fruits and vegetables. And the benefit you get from eating that may last a few hours, in your body, may last a day. It depending, different nutrients have different half-lives in the body and whatnot. But the point is, you have to keep putting the medicine in.
Yeah.
Right? You got to keep taking it. And so to me, like, people ask me about juicing all the time. And the best example of this I can give you is that juice is medicine, right? Juice is an extract from vegetables or fruit, right? You're extracting, you're concentrating nutrients, you're consuming them, they're going right into your bloodstream, they need no digestive energy, and they're delivering vital nutrients to your blood, which take them to your cells. And there is some benefit for some window of time, right? And then the benefit has happened, and now you need more.
Yeah.
Right? And so juicing throughout the day is critical for advanced cancer patients, right? I was drinking 8 juices a day, right? 8-ounce servings per day. That's 64 ounces of carrot juice exclusively. And then I would start blending in other things like beets and celery and ginger root and garlic, so making more of a mixed vegetable juice. And I did that for years, right? Every single day, like 64 ounces of juice, 2 giant salads. I was eating fresh fruit. I was making fruit smoothies. Berries are the most potent anti-cancer fruits. So like blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, strawberries, cherries. Throw them all in the blender, right? Put some water in there, throw some almonds and walnuts in there, grab some handfuls of spinach and kale, and blend it all up. If it's not sweet enough, you can throw a banana in there or some dates, and it's delicious. And so I was never hungry, right? I mean, I ate whenever I needed to eat, right? I was eating. In fact, I was eating deliberately, right? It was the volume of nutrition was very important, right? 1 salad is beneficial, 2 is double.
Yeah.
Right. 1 juice is beneficial. 8 is 8 times better.
Yeah.
Right. In one day. And so the volume of medicine, if food is medicine, the volume of medicine really matters. And the cool thing about using food as medicine is it's almost impossible to overdose. Right? It's almost impossible to overdose. I overdosed on carrot juice and turned orange.
That's a good problem to have.
It was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't even a problem. It was just kind of a humorous side effect, right?
Yeah.
Some people thought I was jaundiced and I was getting really sick, but I was like, no, it's the carrots. It's the carrots. It's
the beta carotene. Just doing its
I'm
thing.
drinking a lot of carrot juice. And I was orange for years, right? Because I was drinking so much carrot juice. But yeah, I mean, food is safe, right? It's safe. I mean, the worst thing that happens when people eat too much, of something, maybe you get nauseous, right? Yeah. Maybe you throw up. Maybe I never did that, right? Certainly supplements could make you nauseous and throw up if you eat them consume them on an empty stomach or you take too much of something. But food is safe. And that is something that, to me, it just makes no sense that the cancer industry wouldn't put a stronger emphasis on food because it's safe, right? It's a do no harm approach. Exercise, diet and exercise. These therapies don't hurt people. They help them. And patients who do conventional treatment, if they change their diet and lifestyle, like I talked about earlier, they do better. They have better survival. They have longer disease-free survival and better overall survival. And so, now as a patient advocate, it's been 19 years since my diagnosis, and obviously I'm still alive and well, and I'm just blessed to be able to share my story and hopefully help encourage people and give them hope and empower them, right? Like give them their power back, that they can change their life, that you're not a victim. It's kind of crazy to think about, everything that I've been through and how God used it to bless me in ways that I could never imagine.
Yeah. And I feel like you're blessing others, you're continuing the blessing. So, when you said you prayed to get guidance, I think even that book was just an answer. And I think the fact that you felt that that was the right approach and you didn't feel right about going the medical route of taking chemo, I think, sometimes that's the Holy Spirit talking to us, like really saying, look at something else. I'm trying to heal you. I'm trying to bring you back to how I made you, which is healthy. And it's a powerful thing because I think that voice that we have within, sometimes we just don't listen to. And as you said, the fear can even mute that voice for a lot of people. And then, and then it's worse. So I love that you're doing that. And as I said at the beginning, you are inspiring others. And I personally, I never had cancer, thankfully, up to now anyway. And I, every time I see clients who do, resources like yours are very helpful, because to me, it's like, I can tell you what I learned, but I haven't experienced it. So I'm going to send it to someone that has experienced it, so you can see it's doable. And then, as you said, it was 20 years ago, and now you're obviously in your 40s and you look amazing, you're glowing, and that's because of the food, lifestyle, and you're continuing to walk your talk, which is so important. So that's real medicine to me, you know?
Thank you. Yeah, I've continued because I'm still a young person. You know, like I'd like to live to be, 90 or maybe 100. I mean, that's kind of a personal goal. Like I'd like to get to 100, I don't have to, it's fine. But I'm more interested, aside from living a long life, is just living a healthy life, is not being debilitated by chronic disease.
Yeah.
To me, the health span is more important to me than the lifespan. I mean, I could die at any time in some random way.
Yeah.
But I don't want to become old and debilitated and just have this prolonged suffering that so many people I've seen go through, where they're just broken down and they're just, on all these medications and not getting better and just getting worse and worse, and their quality of life is just horrible. And, so yeah, I mean, and of course I don't want to get cancer again, any kind of cancer, another 40, 50 years of life. Yeah, there's risk of getting cancer for me. You're right. Any kind, and the risk goes up as you get older. Your immune system, weakens over time if you're not actively taking care of it with nutrition and exercise. And those things really do keep your immune system strong, even in old age.
Yeah.
And all the things I've read and learned, it all just reinforces these very simple ideas, right? The food that you put in your mouth, how you take care of your body, and then your stress are so critical to your physical health. And so the stress part of it is, I think, worth talking about too, because, I made a decision to forgive every person who's ever hurt me when I had cancer. And because I was just reading different books, and I just kept reading people talk about the stress and cancer connection, and how anger and bitterness were a root cause of cancer, and how negative emotions create stress in your body, and that suppresses your immune system.
Yeah.
Right. This is a huge idea. And so what are negative emotions? Well, we all know what they are. I can list them, right? It's stuff from your past. That would be anger and bitterness and resentment toward people who've hurt you. It's also guilt and shame from your own mistakes. Stuff in the present, that would be like insecurity or envy and jealousy. Those are negative emotions, right? And then future-based negative emotions would be fear and worry and anxiety. Yeah. So if you think about it, a lot of us are just bouncing back and forth between, being angry at somebody in our past, jealous of someone in our present, worried about something in the future. Yeah. And so, or even worried about, our present problems too, right? Money problems, relationship problems, right? You just think about all the stresses that people can have. And so when you're bouncing back and forth between all of these negative emotional states, your body stays in a heightened, elevated state of stress. And when you're in that state of stress, you're pumping too much cortisol. The cortisol is suppressing your immune system, interfering with your brain function, interfering with digestion. It's just messing you up and promoting inflammation. And over time, this doesn't happen in a week, right? It doesn't happen in a month, but years, over the course of years of living in this heightened state of chronic stress, your body does break down, right? The stress catches up to you, and you find yourself with some, chronic disease, right? This is cancer thrives in an environment that is inflamed and immunosuppressed.
Yeah. That's
the recipe. Chronic inflammation plus immunosuppression, that's cancer. Cancer's coming. might not be cancer first, could be some other inflammatory disease, autoimmune or type 2 diabetes or a cardiovascular disease. But but the solution and is that you have to take a hard look at your life, like how you're thinking, your thoughts. And I had to do that. And I realized, okay, the first big thing I got to do, I need to start forgiving people who've hurt me. Mm-hmm. And so I just, would take time and just sit down in a prayerful, quiet moments and just open up the memory banks and think through my life. Okay, who do I need to forgive? Who's hurt me? And let's go back to the playground, the kindergarten, right? Let me try to think of every kid that was mean to me on the playground. Just start there, right? That's easy. It's low hanging fruit, right?
Yeah.
But then you just kind of have to work your way through, right? Chronologically, each grade, every age, the people that were coming in and out of your life, the kids, the adults, the whoever, and one by one, forgive them by name. And the way you do this, if anybody's wants to know, it's not difficult. Anyone can do this. Forgiveness is just a decision that you make. Okay. It doesn't change what they did. It doesn't make it okay, but it's a decision that you're making to let go of the anger and the bitterness and the resentment and give it to God. And so I would just say, okay, God, you know what they did, right? I'm thinking of a person in an event. You know what they did? You know how I feel about it? They hurt me, but I'm choosing to forgive them. And I'm letting it go and I'm giving them to you, right? I'm going to release the pain and anger and all of it. I'm just laying it down at the feet of Jesus. Like, here you go. And I'm not going to carry it anymore. And that's part one. Part two is I'm asking you to bless them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm asking you to have mercy on this person. I would prefer you didn't. Right? I would prefer that they suffer some serious harm. That's what I want. Right? That's what I want. But I'm actually asking you to bless them and have mercy on them because I need mercy too. Right? I need forgiveness just as much as they do. Mm-hmm. I need mercy. I need forgiveness. And so when you pray that way, you just give them to God and ask him to bless them and just decide to forgive. He heals your heart.
Yeah.
God will heal your heart if you pray that way, if you choose to forgive. And Jesus talked about forgiveness a lot. It was a major theme. I mean, if you just read the Gospels, you will see over and over and over, this is a major theme of Jesus's entire ministry and life is forgiveness. And,
up to the cross, really. Up to the cross.
Yes. One of the last things he said on the cross before he said it is finished, he said, Father, forgive them for they know not what they do. I mean, think about that. Like he is choosing to forgive from the cross, from the absolute most difficult and agonizing suffering you could ever experience. No one listening to your show has ever been crucified. Mm-hmm. That I'm sure of, right? And yet he did it to show us that like if he can forgive from the cross, you can forgive anybody, right? You can, like, no one has hurt you that bad.
Yeah.
No one has betrayed you and tortured you that bad and literally murdered you. And so, I mean, it's so powerful. And so, I just worked through it, right? I just worked through every person. I didn't do it all in one sitting. You just do it. If you spend a few minutes each day in prayer or meditation and just be like, okay, forgiveness time. Who do I need to forgive? Like there's probably some fresh people that have, hurt your feelings in the last day, right? There's those people. And then there's the people in your past that you got to kind of dig up and remember and deal with.
Yeah.
And it just releases you from a prison of pain. That's what forgiveness does, right? You're locked in to pain when you hold on to bitterness, but forgiveness is the key. That's how you open the cell door. You just unlock it, with forgiveness and you walk out. And so that is so huge. I just cannot emphasize this enough. And so I worked, and I still do, right? I made it a point to be quick to forgive people, right? To be quick to forgive. So I decided I'm going to forgive every person until there's no one left.
Yeah.
Right? There's no one left to forgive. And then, now, I've been online as a patient advocate and a survivor for 13 years. So people have been very mean to me on the internet.
Really? Can you give me some examples? Because it's really, again, I came across you and all I can say is good things, right? So I never even really thought that people could be mean. But it is true that even with me, I practice holistic nutrition, holistic coaching. I'm studying to become a naturopath. People call me a quack. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. You don't know what you're talking about. Is that the same? Is that what they call you?
Yeah, for sure. I've heard it. At this point, there's nothing anyone can say to me that I haven't already heard, but everything from like, you're a fraud, you're dangerous, you don't know what you're talking about, you're a quack, you're killing people. People just will say the meanest things possible when they're hiding behind a fake name on the internet, right?
Yeah.
And so, but I just learned to I just forgive them. I don't hold on to it. I don't take it personally. It's like, yeah, sometimes it stings. It certainly did in the beginning when people, I wasn't used to that. Like, you're going through your life, people aren't normally just criticizing you in your life until you get online and start sharing your opinions, and then here come the critics. But anyway, so yeah, I just learned to do that, and it's just a powerful skill. And then cancer also taught me to how to give my fear to God. To give my fear and worry and anxiety to God. Like, I just, things happen in life that cause worry. And I just stop and say, you know what, God, I'm going to trust you. I'm giving you my fear. I'm not going to worry. Fear is not from you. And I'm going to do the best that I can in this situation. I'm going to trust you with the rest.
Yeah.
I'm going to trust you with the outcome.
Yeah.
And I had to do that every day with cancer, because the fear is constantly trying to creep in.
Yeah. It's
constant. It's just every day you're reminded, like, I could be dying. It could be pain and suffering, and you just think all the things that go along with that. And so that was huge. And then this is all under the stress umbrella, right? Is learning how to deal with your stressful negative thoughts. And then so that's fear of the future, is trusting God, forgiving people in your past, asking for forgiveness for your own mistakes and sin, clearing your conscience, asking others to forgive you that you feel compelled to reconcile with and make amends with, people that you've wronged. That's powerful. That's important. Yeah. And then in terms of the present, just catching yourself, I would just have to catch myself I still do, feeling envious, right? Or jealous of somebody that I perceive has a better life than me or whatever, right? Catching myself being critical or judgmental, right? Or negative or pessimistic. And catching myself being selfish, or prideful. So I'm constantly trying to catch myself in the act, and interrupt those bad thought habits, because you can literally catch yourself right in the moment and going, in the moment, and say, you know what, I'm being envious right now, and I'm going to choose not to be. Let me just remind myself of all the good things in my life. Yeah. I had to do it this morning. I don't even remember what I was thinking about, but I remember catching myself this morning going, wait a second. I've got a wife who loves me. I have a home that I really love. I have 2 beautiful children. I got a fridge full of food. I'm blessed. I'm blessed. Like, I don't need to let whatever this little dumb problem steal my joy.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be problems in your life, right? Life is full of problems. It's just, that's just life. And if you can train yourself how to be resilient, and I love that term, anti-fragile, to become anti-fragile, how to be strong. That's really what anti-fragile is, right? It's strong, right? Being strong, tough, resilient, And so, those are just valuable lessons that cancer taught me at a very young age. And I certainly have not perfected any of those things, but they're just a part of my daily life now. It's just mindfulness, practicing gratitude, forgiving people who've hurt me, giving my fears and worry to God, and just focusing on today, being joyful today.
Being present. I
Mm-hmm.
really appreciate what you're saying, because I feel like a lot of the times we work on something and we can portray ourselves out there as these people that have it all figured out. But actually you're keeping it really real. It's like I do the work, but it's work every day because it's not easy. And I can relate to that. Like I catch myself sometimes going into old patterns and then being like, no, why am I thinking this way? Like actually I know better, so I need to do better. And it's about rewiring all the time, because it's easy in a way. It's easier to be negative than being positive and grateful for some weird reason. And it's work every day, but it's so empowering because that changes the lenses that we look at the world with, at others with. And as you said, it doesn't steal joy when we do that. It does steal joy when we are into this very low vibrational state, because everything in low vibration is kind of dead, right? It doesn't grow, it doesn't flourish. So I really do relate to that. If you don't mind me taking you back to when you were diagnosed, and we talked about your diet being quite a standard Western diet. What about your lifestyle? What did you do? You obviously probably finished school by then, university studies, and what was your career like? What were you doing? What was your lifestyle looking like?
My life was pretty stressful during that time. I mean, I graduated in 2001. I graduated and got married in that year. And so that was a stressful year, and then started working, in the world. Started working a job that was, like a sales job. So it didn't have guaranteed, salary. Income. Yeah. So I started out like, boom, right into stress, and so I was diagnosed 2 years later. And in that time, I'd also started a business in real estate. So I'd started buying houses and fixing them up and renting them out. And so I was like trying to figure out that business, and it was very challenging, and you're dealing with difficult people, and, so, so I had a lot of stress, and I had a lot of just negative, like the stuff we talked about a minute ago. Yeah. I was, jealous and competitive and bitter and resentful, and I just had a lot of negative thoughts and emotions, right? I was generally a negative person, I'll just say. Even though I was a Christian and a believer, I still, we still are works in progress, you know what I'm saying? And, but yeah, I just had all these negative tendencies that I had not matured out of and had not really been taught how to overcome.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I have to say all that wasn't helpful. Yeah. And I was, again, I was eating fast food and junk food and tons of meat and dairy, right? Just tons of processed food and animal food. Every day. That was my main diet. And I mean, I was going through the drive-through, every day for lunch and sometimes dinner. And yeah, being sort of a broke newlywed trying to build a business. So all that was not helpful. And, I just, once I changed my diet and I realized I could, like I was doing it. Had successfully changed it. Then it just unlocked this potential in me where I realized, okay, what else can I change? And that's when, to me, that's like, it sounds overwhelming, all the stuff we're talking about. And the thing is, I want people to understand is like, you can't change it all at once. Like you can't, it's okay. Right. But you can change your diet today.
Yeah.
You can change that today. You can start exercising today. Like those are two big changes that you can implement into your life immediately.
Yeah.
Right. without having to like rearrange your brain or anything, you know, right? You can just make a decision. I'm doing this. And then once you get that momentum, and it's hard the first few days, the first week, you know, if you're really going from eating meat every day to eating fruits and vegetables, I get it. It's difficult. Like you have withdrawal from all the sugar and salt and protein. And like, these are all addictive foods. And so they reward your pleasure centers. So you will have withdrawals and you'll feel weird. And you may have low energy and you may just feel like, oh, I don't know. I can't do this. People say, oh, I can't live without meat. I'm like, you really can. But you're going to miss it for a few days, maybe a week, but then you get over the hump. It's like quitting smoking, you know, like everybody who quits smoking, they feel like crap for a little while, you know, like, but then they feel great, you know, once you finally get over that hump. So I'm rabbit trailing a little bit, but the point I'm trying to get at is that if you want to change your life, start with the things you can do easily, right? The diet and exercise. And then over time, that's when you work on how you're thinking, right? Your thought life. That's when you start forgiving people who've hurt you, right? You start, you know, giving your fear to God. You just start those practices, right? Those daily practices. You're breaking your bad habits, mental habits, right? It's easy to break the bad physical habits, in my opinion. That's way easier. You know, I get it. Drug addiction is not easy, but you know, in terms of food addiction and you know, not exercising, being sedentary or lazy, those are easy habits to break. But it takes a while to break your bad thought habits, and so you just kind of get on the healthy path and get going. And something that I should have said earlier is, in regards to stress, is when the thing about stress that's so insidious is that when people are in a state of stress, which we'll call distress, right? That's bad stress. They self-medicate, right? So when you're distressed, you will find a way to alleviate the pain, the anxiety, the fear, the worry, the anger, whatever it is. Like, you'll find a way to alleviate it. You may use drugs and alcohol. You may use food. You may use sex. You may use gambling or shopping or being a workaholic, or even just like binge watching or social media scrolling. Like, anything you can do to get your mind off of your problems, you will do. Like, this is human nature. And so it's really important to be aware of that, because if you focus on your problems and start solving them, like forgiving is solving, then you're removing the stress that's causing you, right, to seek this medicative behavior, right? Yes. So the whole point is, I'm saying, it's easier to break those bad habits if you get to the root cause of your stresses that are leading you to the bad habits, right?
Yeah. I actually, you made me think about something about when you talked about self-medicating, to do with food as well. So there's a lot of emotional eating in the world, whether it, you know, as you mentioned. Oh, yes. But there's one thing that every single person that goes raw is reporting, and that's, with raw, you can't really do that in a way. You can't hide your feelings behind the food, because what you're eating is so pure that you're going to have to face your feelings. You just don't have a choice. And I wonder if in your journey, because you changed your diet and you went raw, and, you know, there was no, you know, sugar and, you know, wheat and things that make you feel good, like in that moment from the wrong perspective, if it did also force you to feel and to like face the feelings that were coming up, because I'm like, actually, I'm eating raw and I'm feeling raw, and I just have to deal with this now.
Actually, I love what you just said. I'm eating raw and I'm feeling raw. Yeah, it did. And, you know, at the time I wasn't, I didn't have the same level of like awareness about who I am and my thoughts. And, you know, I wasn't able to make those connections at the time, but looking back, I'm sure that also, you know, eating that way, you know, it removed my medication, right? because I was certainly using food as medication. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't smoking cigarettes. I wasn't doing any drugs, legal or illegal, right? Like I wasn't doing any of those things. I was working a lot, but I wasn't like exactly a workaholic. Like I wasn't working into midnight, you know? I was working pretty normal hours, but food definitely for me was a form of medication. And yeah, I mean, it just, the whole process at that time, it just became very clear to me after a short time of like being on the raw food diet, you know, and reading what I was reading and learning that like, okay, I got to deal with my stuff, right? Like I got to start detoxing my emotional life and spiritual life, right? I got to work on that too. And because I just knew like it's not just what you eat, right?
Yeah.
Health isn't just what you eat. What you eat's a big part. And I like to say that, you know, the raw food diet is a gateway drug, right? To the healthy path, right?
Yeah.
Or to radical life change even. It's what gets kind of, it's the catalyst. And you don't have to be raw forever. I'm not on a raw food diet now, although I'm just talking to my wife this morning, like I'm thinking about probably going all raw for a season, you know, maybe for 90 days. But I still eat tons of raw fruits and vegetables. It's a big part of my diet, obviously. But yeah, I'm thinking about going all raw and really ramping up the juicing again, just because, you know, it's good. So yeah, I love the way you put that. I might have to repeat that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, eating raw and feeling raw, but it's true. It does. Well, I tell you what does it even more is fasting.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Because when you fast, like you get no pleasure from food because there's no food.
Yeah.
Right? And so, yeah, it's amplified even more for sure. The emotions bubble up. You know, the unresolved conflict and the negative emotions and all that stuff really bubbles up during a water fast. Yeah. And I did a fair amount of that. I just did a water fast last weekend.
Oh wow.
And so yeah, and again, we encourage people in our community to water fast, like to make this a part of your health and wellness routine. You know, if you can do 3 days a month, 3 to 5 days a month, it's really good. And so the rule of thumb is kind of like, you know, if you're gonna do a 5-day fast, wait 5 weeks. You can kind of do 5 days every 5 weeks, 6 days every 6 weeks. You know, it's just kind of but anyway, I don't know where I was going with that other than, you know, folks in our community. Oh, what I tell them when they do it is, I say, look, you're going to have some emotions. Stuff's going to come up, you know, like some sadness, some anger, some bitterness, some resentment. Like you're going to have some very potent emotions come to the surface when you stop eating. And now's the time to deal with them.
Yeah.
Right. What's nice is they bubble up to the surface and then you can just skim them off the top. Right.
Yeah.
It's like when you're refining silver, the dross, like all the impurities, you know, bubble up to the top when they're refining silver and they just scoop them off the top. So it's like, that's the process. Like they're going to come up. And again, part of the fasting process too, is you want to try to be quiet and rest and, you know, not be distracted. You know, I mean, you still get benefits, but if you really spend more time in prayer and meditation while you're fasting and journaling and, you know, just writing down your thoughts and feelings and just getting stuff out, you know, I feel like the benefit is amplified.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to just really go within and empty out the bucket, you know, so it's great.
Who am I? What do I believe? Like what's bothering me? You know, what do I care? Yeah. What's my purpose? What do I care about? Yeah. You know, I know we're getting short on time here, but one thing that I want to share is that in my prayer life, I would always pray, God, you know, show me what I need to do, which that's, you know, people pray that all the time. Yeah. But I'd also say, show me what I need to change.
Yeah.
Right. show me what I need to change. Like, what in my life do I need to change? Because I had what I call the beat cancer mindset. And I talk about it in my book, and there's a longer explanation of what it involves, but part of it is being willing to change everything, right? Being willing to change your whole life, taking full responsibility for your health, being willing to change your whole life. Like, that is core to the beat cancer mindset. Another big core is just believing that healing is possible. Believing that you can get well and that healing is possible. That'll motivate you to actually take action. But, being willing to change and saying, God, what do I need to change? I'm totally humbling myself. I'm admitting that I don't know it all. I barely know anything. I've probably been doing it all wrong. I'm okay with myself, right? But I need some direction. Show me, I'll change it. You name it, I'll change it, right?
Yeah.
So, and that might be move, right? It might be move to a new house, right? It may be change your job, right?
Was that for you? Because that's my last question. As you said, we're running out of time and I don't want to take too much of your time, but how did you transfer your career from what you were doing before cancer to what you're doing now, which is absolutely empowering, but it's very demanding, writing books and creating programs, having people that reach out to you and helping them. How did you transform your career into this?
Well, it did not happen quickly. I stayed in real estate for many years. So I was diagnosed in 2000, basically December 2003, and I started the Chris Beat Cancer website in 2010. So it was 6.5 years after my diagnosis, and I was still working in real estate. I just started that to share my story. I just thought, well, if I just put my story out there, maybe I can encourage some people. And I started writing articles in my spare time and making videos to share what I'd learned and just trying to be helpful. It was just a part-time passion. It wasn't like, I'm going to start a new business. And and it just grew. It grew over the course of the first 5 years doing it. It just continually, my audience just kept growing, and I just saw the value of what I was doing. I saw the impact it was having and the feedback I was getting from people that were reading what I was writing. And I started interviewing other people who had healed cancer and sharing their stories. So that became a big part of what I do now. It still is. It's like, I love to interview survivors and share their stories because they all have so much wisdom. And we all did basically the same things. And so for my audience, for the patients that have cancer, watching these survivor interviews, I mean, you just see the common threads over and over and over. It's nutrition, right? It's raw foods, juicing, exercise, fasting, forgiveness. It's all these things I just talked about. Like, it wasn't just what I did. And so between that, interviewing people who've healed against the odds, and all the survivors I interview are holistic survivors. So they've either healed with no conventional treatment or healed after conventional treatment failed. I mean, they're just remarkable stories, better than mine. Okay. like anybody who heals with no surgery or anything, I mean, that's a better story, right? That is a better story than mine. But anyway, and I've interviewed tons of doctors, experts and people that are doctors that are holistic and integrative and really focused on helping their patients heal, right? And nutrition is always a huge part of that. And some of the best doctors also understand the mind, body, spirit connection, the emotions and the stress. And so after about 5 years, my audience and had grown to a degree that I was like, wow, I think maybe I could do this full time. And so 2015 is really when I started seriously focusing on this as a full-time, whatever it is. I don't even know how to describe what I do, right? And I got serious about writing my first book. I'd been working on it for years, and I was like, okay, I'm really going to buckle down and work on this book. And that was published in 2018. And we have a course called Square One, which is a program to help cancer patients heal. And we have a private support community for them. And you can find that if you go to Chris Beat Cancer, if you just click on coaching, if you want to learn about that. But anyway, and then I had the opportunity to write a devotional, a daily devotional called Beat Cancer Daily. And then the cookbook came out last year, Beat Cancer Kitchen. The pandemic, actually, I wrote 2 books during the pandemic, the devotional and the cookbook. So yeah, it all happened. It didn't happen overnight. It was just me consistently working and interviewing people and writing articles and researching and just pursuing this, passion for helping people, for encouraging them and giving them hope and options, right? And information, like valuable information that you can use to help yourself. And then, yeah, it's just like one day I was like, wow, I guess this is what I'm supposed to do with the rest of my life.
Yeah. And, well, I agree. Yeah. I think, I found your work for personal reason as well. Like I totally made myself sick after stress. And I was holding on to a lot of anger. In 2018, we bought this place in Portugal. It was a ruin, a farm. And, we came from London, like we didn't know what to do here. So I had to hire outside contractors, and one of the builders, they don't respect women a lot in the Mediterranean countries. But my husband is American and he didn't speak a little bit of nothing. Like at least I have a little bit of Italian and Spanish. So I was kind of communicating with them. But they took advantage and it was very frustrating. And I held on to so many bad feelings. And then because of the move, I don't know, a lot of stuff came up, like so much of the old feelings. And then I started really not looking after myself, and I gave myself type 2 diabetes on a vegan diet, because I stopped eating whole foods. I was eating just vegan food. And I didn't realize how sick I was until I really was having a breakdown. And I had exhaustion. I had adrenal exhaustion. In the morning, I just couldn't even get out of bed. And I looked at myself in the mirror and I just did not recognize myself. Now, I would never been a big person, like, obese, but I had fat that in places like, my belly didn't look the same. Like my legs looked like pillars of water retention. I'm like, okay, I can see that this is not good. And, that also implies the liver is it's clogged, and I definitely had anger, and that's the liver. So I was like, I cannot do this anymore. And one of the things is looking online for community, because I am quite lonely up here in the sense that, I don't have a community of health-minded vegan people, like plant-based people that understand where I'm coming from. And so I looked online, and one of the people that I found was you. So when I read your book, even though I don't have cancer, like the healing process made a lot of sense. And so that's what, took me into like going fully raw, actually juicing more again, and really taking care of myself. I'm like, I know these things, but I kind of need to follow a roadmap, because I just, when you feel so lost, you don't even though you know things, you just don't know how to do them. Yes. And you just got me back there. And then I found even like the guys from Eat More Breast so inspiring. And I just started really connecting with people online. And so this podcast really became a project of me really meeting these amazing people that I look at and I'm like, thank you, So yeah, that's how I came about your book. And this is why when I actually coach people, I'm like, this is a great resource. This person knows what they're talking about. They are well read, they are well researched, and also they're really honest. Like, I wouldn't resonate if you weren't sincere, really. So I love it. Thank you.
That's awesome. That makes me so happy to just to know that I was some small part of your healing story. That is so great. I mean, that's why I do it, right? Mm-hmm. I know you understand that too. It's like there's, if people didn't continually say thank you, I would have quit a long time ago. Yeah. Right? But it's like once you help somebody, it's addictive. That's such a good feeling, and you want to keep helping people because it feels so great. It's so wonderful and fulfilling to be. And I'm so thankful that I can do this, because the real estate business was a business that made money, but it didn't give me any real lasting fulfillment. You know what I'm saying? It was just a very transactional type of business. I'm providing a good or a service in exchange for money. And so, it's just another level to be able to do what we're doing. And it's funny too, because having a podcast is great, because it really does allow you to gives you an opportunity to connect with and talk with people that you want to talk to, and I've got to interview so many people that I was looked up to and that helped me. And I know. It's fun. It's really fun.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Well, Chris, thank you so much. I mean, of course, everything that you've done and do will be on the show notes, and so that people can reach out to you, which I really recommend they do. And yeah, you continue sharing your amazing work. It's a gift. So thank you so much, and thank you for your time today. It was such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Bye. See you soon. Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you everyone for staying on for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly love learning from Chris all the time. I love that he keeps on growing and keeps on sharing, and this is what it is all about. So if you are in need of support, if you are wanting to heal your body, if you're on a journey, check out Chris's work in the show notes and really reach out to him. And also check out his books. They are amazing. And the last one is all about beautiful recipes that really show you the blueprint to a healthy diet. So guys, as always, if you enjoyed the episode, please do rate it, share it, and make sure you follow us so that we can keep on growing. And I will see you next week.